Your body and brain are made to keep you safe. Here's the problem. You're taking care of people who aren't. And in every moment you work with them, they are going to bring secondhand stress into your life. And so our job today in the next few minutes is to show you what you can do about it to put your brain on self-care rather than anxiety and worry and fear. And the first way to do that is to know which part of your brain is firing when you think there is a bear, when in fact you're sitting in your living room next to the person you love, eating popcorn, watching a movie. In your brain are two tiny almond-shaped regions called the amygdala, also called the alarm. Why? Because its job is to keep you safe. The problem is the alarms in our brain become hyperactive. If you are in the face of too much stress too often, the problem is that your alarm will get overwhelmed by the signals and it will start firing all the time. When this happens in the theater of war or after people have experienced trauma, we call it post-traumatic stress disorder. Normal signals of stress, you know them already, and if anyone's public speaking, you can immediately feel them. Your hands begin to shake a little bit, your palms get a little bit sweaty, your face gets red. I'm describing myself right now. But it's not a problem, because that's the normal stress reaction. The problem is when your amygdala, your alarm, starts to fire on overtime, you can't stop its signals. Your brain gets stuck on something called the short loop. And what your alarm does is, without engaging your thinking center, your frontal lobes, it goes right to your memory center and it pulls up every single thing it can that will get you out of that situation quickly. So if you're in a difficult conversation at work or with a client and suddenly you're filled with this emotion of dread, that's your alarm saying, this is uncomfortable, I got to get out of here, I don't know what to do here. If you're on the first tee, playing a little bit of golf, and suddenly you feel this overwhelming set of nerves and you just swing without even thinking and spray it off into the trees, that's your alarm. Because it says, why in God's name are you playing golf in the first place? That's too hard a game. And it wants you off the first tee where you might be embarrassed. The problem for us is that when we are working with clients who are in need, their alarms are on all the time. But you don't have to get stuck on the short loop where your memory center is suddenly throwing all these emotions and thoughts and images into your body and brain. You have another option. You can engage your frontal lobes and begin to think on purpose. Now, it turns out in the theater of war that men and women in the hot seats of the Humvees looking out for the bombs, or in the turrets of the tanks, they only sit in those difficult positions for 45 to 90 minutes because your frontal lobes can get tired. But the great news is that for 45 to 90 minutes at a time, you can use your frontal lobes to take the information from your alarm and use it to turn it down. When you're dealing with a client who's in extreme stress, you're the one who can notice that, feel that put stress into your body, and then say, let's pause for a second and think about this. You're the kind of person who can look at a complex meeting where we're trying to solve global problems and see everyone else just getting angrier and angrier at each other because they disagree. And you can ask them to do a little breathing exercise for a moment, or take a break, or go get a coffee, or move that meeting to lunch, because if we're not eating during these meetings, our brains are stressed because they want food. You're the kind of people who know how to deal with the most complex situations, until we don't. And the reason is because secondhand stress can turn us into the kind of people who become reactive too. People who are stuck on the short loop, living out of their alarms, are reactive. People who are thinking are in a place where they are able to use their frontal lobes, engage the long loop, and they are able to take any situation and use the alarm signals to decide what to do next, because the alarm is just looking out for you. What we're going to finish this talk with is 5 ways that you can do self-care to make sure that your alarm is always ready to serve you and keep you safe, rather than get you stuck in a place of stress and anxiety and fear. The first thing you have to do is measure on a regular basis. But if you measure your stress on a regular basis in your day-to-day life, you start to notice who's stressing you out, what's stressing you out, what situation is causing adrenaline to come into my body. And when you notice it, then you can do something about it. But not if you're not able to do the second thing, which allows us to put our brain on self-care, and that's be mindful. Every person, if they are mindful first, they stop the short loop, even though the stress doesn't instantly go away, and they connect their frontal lobes to their alarm. It turns out that the secret sauce in stress reduction is just getting your frontal lobes online. And you don't do that by thinking more. Because if you think more first, your alarm goes, well, you're not thinking right in the first place, so I'm going to send more stress until you get this right. But if you're willing to pause, breathe, slow down, taste, look, listen, count, sweep your mind clean like you tried to in meditation just for 10 seconds. Suddenly, you've brought your full brain online, and when they do fMRI scans of this, they found that people who do that for 27 to 40 minutes a day at Harvard Medical School, using the stress reduction work done by Jon Kabat-Zinn and his mindfulness program, they were literally able to thicken their frontal lobes and their hippocampus, and they shrunk their alarms. And if you're that kind of person who can be mindful when the people around you are losing their minds, then suddenly your clients trust you more. The people around you want to work with you more. And most importantly, you are able to go home at the end of a really hard day and say, I'm tired, rather than snapping at your spouse. Not that I'd ever do that. The third thing you have to do is have a rhythm to your life. The rhythm that most of us live these days is a stressed out one, where you go from one thing to another, checking things off the list, doing everything we're supposed to do, and if we don't do it, we think we're going to be in trouble, because we're caretakers. That's our job. Unfortunately, if you don't first in your life put 3 things on your daily schedule, you will constantly be overwhelmed. The first thing you have to do is have some level of breaks every 45 minutes to 90 minutes. Just like those troops who are in the theater of war, when you're working with people who are stressed out all the time, if you don't take a break and actually show yourself the difference between the stress that you're being exposed to and the beautiful day that's outside, the sweetness of a peppermint or a bit of chocolate, if you don't build that in every 45 minutes to 90 minutes and have it bing on your cell phone, unless that stresses you out, you can find another way to put it in your calendar, you will always have a hyperactive alarm firing in your brain. The first thing you have to do is take breaks. The second thing you have to do is sit and eat meals at a table with a napkin. So in France, they wouldn't think of missing a meal. When they hear of us eating in our cars, they're absolutely offended. Why would you not take this time to be with colleagues and friends, to pause, to think? And this actually has to do with Maslow and his hierarchy figured out at the University of Wisconsin. If you don't have food and shelter and water, you're not safe. And which part of your brain starts firing? The alarm. Well, if you've just thrown the food into your body from a drive-through on the way to your next meeting with the next client, you didn't taste it, your alarm doesn't know that you've eaten because you ate so quickly, and it keeps sending the signals that you're hungry. But if you can build time in for regular meals, please at least breakfast or dinner with your family or the person you love, suddenly that rhythm keeps your alarm in check all the time. The third thing you have to do, and it's the easiest in the world, is take a walk. I didn't say exercise, because that's not always the favorite thing for any of us. I didn't say meditate. I said just take a walk. I'm tricking you into both exercises and meditation. If you can go and take a regular walk for just 12, 20, 40 minutes, you have put your body into motion. And here's the thing about stress and the brain. We sit too much. When your brain sends the adrenaline, you know what it wants you to do? Fight or flee. But they want you to get out of the situation you're in. When you're walking, you're moving, and your brain goes, oh, I don't need to worry about that because the trouble's back there. If you can build these kind of things into the rhythm of your life and put them in your book first before you schedule your client meetings and organizational patterns, suddenly your brain goes, well, you're paying attention to me. And so you know what? I'm not going to send you extra stress today. Fourth thing you've got to do is have values that are so clear that in the middle of a crisis, they are the files that your alarm pulls from your memory center. They are the files you can use intentionally through your frontal lobes to stay focused when everyone else is melting. You have to do that fifth thing to take care of your brain. You have to always take retreats. Now, whether it's once a week and having a Sabbath, whether it's once a month and going away for a learning day, whether it's like Bill Gates, who would go away for a week from Microsoft without his computer, without his screens, and just have a pen and paper and come up with his best ideas. You've got to be the kind of people who take a break. Like Thoreau at Walden. You know, it was real stressful being a tutor and doing a little handiwork in the Emerson household in the bustling metropolis of Concord. Really? But he went away because for him that was too much, and he knew his own brain. And he spent a year being mindful, looking at the dust particles in the sun, turning the hawk into the most beautiful sound he had ever heard, and most importantly, just tending to some beans. Now, whether you need a year-long retreat, a week-long retreat, or a day like today, isn't that great? You've already done number 5 by being here today in terms of your self-care. You've got to have time away if you want your brain to be healthy. To review the 5, you have to measure your stress. You have to be the kind of people who are mindful on a regular basis. You have to have rhythm in your life that has breaks and walks and meals where you sit with the people you care about, or at least eat slowly so your brain knows that you are well cared for. You need to have values that are so strong they will get you through the toughest times of stress. And if you really want to take care of your clients well, you have to go away. So when you come back to their problems, you realize you can have an impact on them. If you care for your own brain, there is no brain that you come in contact with for whom you cannot turn down their alarm and put them on the path to healthier and better lives.